Hello again to our guests on the web and on the cloud and everyone here present today. I'm very happy to be presenting on this series on the 3D vision and AI revolutionizing imaging technologies, dynamic lung reconstruction from medical volumes, a 3D pipeline for visual and computational exploration. So we're going to be speaking today about something that brings myself, so it was a natural transition from automotive into meditech. I'm really interested in the topic of meditech, and this is basically my 50 seconds to the industry. When I was asked to give this presentation, we were thinking, okay, this audience, what kind of audience are we expecting? So we know because of the teams, the meetup, right? We're having a heart for meditech. So I said, you know what? Okay, I'll try my best to put something together for meditech, and this is it. So we're going to be speaking about the problem and some kind of prototype I'm proposing for this. After that, we're going to see a live demo and the things that we have to think about to bring that into the OR, into the operating room. So the whole pipeline will be explained, and we will come out to the bigger picture and hopefully wrap up. So if I would tell you how a dynamic neural rendering for surgical visualization would look like, this is it. I mean, this is the result of the whole presentation. So I will just play it once. Hopefully you can see it. So hopefully you can see that this is breathing. It's not just static, right? And it might be, for example, that there are some details there that one can basically improve based on the testing pipeline that one is using. But hopefully you can see it's breathing, and yeah, what you are seeing here is one component from a larger pipeline, a modular neural rendering system built to learn the 3D appearance of anatomy from limited inputs. So it's more like an immersive 3D reconstruction module. So the clinical reality nowadays for the surgeons is that they're usually having a visualization or a view on 2D images. It happened to me once when I was having a surgery. I could just look at these 2D images, and I was actually asking the surgeon, so how on earth can you just, visualize and be able to just put these probes and so on? So there were a lot of things that I couldn't understand back then. But in principle, depth and orientation is something that must be reconstructed mentally by the surgeon and under pressure. So every millimeter counts, every second counts. Although I'm going to be tackling here minimally invasive operations. The thing here is to really ask yourselves, could surgeons navigate reality in 3D through a technical 3D proxy? That's actually what I'm trying to solve and what I'm trying to speak about. So we have seen incredible innovation in hardware, right? No doubt. But the question remains, how do we bring AI and 3D into workflows that are so time and risk sensitive? So what I'm proposing here is a system architecture, and this is what we're going to be speaking about today. So I'm not really sure if you can, I guess it's visualizable. So on the back, you can see basically how the system architecture looks like. In blue is what we're going to be speaking about today. So you have, like in every system, as you might all know, some data acquisition module, right? Which is basically taking several pre-op data structs, for example, CT scans, and some real-time streams, for example, ultrasound, which is streamable in real time, and you can have several older modalities, right? Then we have pre-processing, which is bringing everything into a coherent representation such that it can be taken by the next step, which is then the processing. And the processing is the module we're going to be speaking today about, which is taking care of bringing this coherent representation into something that is intuitive for the surgeon and the operating team to visualize and to analyze offline and online. After that, we have simulation and visualization. So it takes basically these views from the processing module. And in the end, we have this clinical output, which is nothing else than the filter version, taking into consideration this regulatory compliance issues that we have to see. And what the doctor should be able to see and not, depending on the compliance issues that we have. So now, if we focus on the processing module, so we have 3 blocks, or at that moment in time when I was working on this some months ago, I proposed firstly these 3 blocks. And we have the sampling, the neural scene encoder, and the real-time renderer. So for those of you who don't understand most of the words, so the sampling is just a block which is taking this coherent representation from the preprocessing block, and it's feeding it into the neural scene encoder, which is actually data agnostic and plugin ready. So what you can basically take out this box, put it in again, or put another one basically that has the same interfaces, which are generically defined, and you're good to go. You can reconstruct your model, as we just saw it some slides before. And in the end, we have this real-time renderer, which then renders the whole thing in real time, as the name says, but also allows to have generatively picked visualizations that the doctors can use offline or online. So this system is real. It runs today, but it's what I'm going to be presenting today is just one model of the larger product vision. This modular thinking stems partly from my work in automotive, where real-time 3D vision must meet stringent safety and latency demands. The same thinking applies here, but with clinical constraints in mind. So, with nothing else to say, let's just speak about a prototype. So this is a prototype. Now we're diving into the processing model, which was in blue in the last slide, right? And what do we have? Where on the left side, you have these 3 views, which are different in time, right? So as you can see, these are medial slices on CT scans of the lungs. They are in different times, by the way. I didn't copy-paste the same image 3 times. And yeah, and basically this is the camera rig. So we usually tend to think about it as a camera rig, which is then kind of, looking at the object at the same time, and then, we take any algorithm that we want, or we create our own, and we reconstruct the scene. For the data that I am using here is anonymized pre-op CT of the lungs. I propose several kinds of cameras, which are basically simulating the views that the surgeon would be getting, for example, with different kinds of scopes, or as well from the fixed setup, which is mounted around, depending on the system and depending on the companies we're speaking about. The rendering backend, again, is agnostic, so you can choose it. Should be modularly working. And the goal here, at least for this presentation and for this module, is to evaluate visual realism, focus on bronchia and lung vessels, and be able to analyze the path responsiveness of longitudinal data. When I mean longitudinal data, I mean data that we are already registering among each other, right? Such that we can concentrate on the rendering quality. Having said that, let's have a live demo all together, putting everything that we've said. So you're looking actually on the left side at the static view and on the right side on the dynamic view. I will just play them in a minute. But in principle, as I said, the system can be basically created for surgeons to pre-analyze before the operation or to analyze while operating. And then it has real-time constraints. So let's just play it once. So on the left side, you have the reconstruction. So for people who have worked with reconstruction methods, it might look familiar to you, a rotating table view, right? But on the other side, when the lung is breathing, like you see it in the right side, sorry. Hopefully it's possible to be seen, but it's very, very fine, but it's basically moving. And this movement is basically encoded as well into the model, which is, again, modularly separated from the whole concept. So so you can already imagine, so which things can we take care of after this? So segmentation quality, right? Because we're speaking about bronchia, we're speaking about all of these air paths in the lungs. So usually we're basically just taking a wrench inside of the CT scan units, right? So we want to measure, for example, the render quality and sharpness plus constancy in time. We want fidelity of reconstruction of important landmarks. Sometimes this is the thing that we mostly care about, right? And movement encoding following actually breathing pattern as observed in the patient. So tracking, for example, how the lungs are evolving in time, not only with CT scans pre-op, but also with modalities that are arriving in real time. So now let's imagine, so this is offline, right? So imagine the doctor, the surgeon is with his mouse basically just scrolling and rotating and so on. And then it goes good, but then we activate in real time because we want to be able to let it work in the operating room. And these are basically views of, again, the static module or the static model, and the dynamic one. And it might be possible for the surgeon to analyze something online, but in principle, I want to motivate for the view that I foresee for this. So if the surgeon is basically moving his tool, right, all around outside or inside of the organ, we're usually trying to track these tools, right? So why not presenting it in the 3D model? I'm really sure some companies are offering something similar to that. But what we're trying to push here forward is basically the neural rendering capability, which then will bring an enhanced view, first of all, but also explainability for the operating team. And not only so we're it's not saying that the doctors are not good at doing it, but they can be helped by having this 3D view all along. So, after seeing this model in place, right, this rendering module, if you want to call it, what do we still need to bring that into the operating room? And in principle, you can think, I'm really sure many people in the audience can think about several things. So I just listed up some of them for you. So real-time tracking, right? So we can connect basically to the localization modules of the company, for example. Sensor integration, rendering latency is very important. Clinical interface, workflow integration, validation pipelines. We spoke about segmentation, realism, sharpness, and so on. So these validation pipelines are very important. And regulatory readiness. So in the end, what you see here on the right side is, for example, some AI-generated image and how I imagine it could look like. So you have the probe there. And you have the 3D model in the middle, right? And when the doctor is basically trying to go inside or from outside with the scope, right? You can already localize yourself with the haystack, for example. And I'm really sure many questions arise on why not using directly, for example, the CT scan, and why going through a neural reconstruction pipeline all along. But in principle, again, this is an encoder, right? This encoder is already giving us the kind of realism we want for the doctors and the operating team to visualize. And if it's good enough, why not being able to localize ourselves also by profiting from the localization algorithms that we already have. So let's come back to the bigger picture again. So this is the architecture I presented before. So again, this core module is part of a larger pipeline for 3D vision that it's nowadays working. It's designed to integrate with existing systems, so scopes, trackers, and planning tools. And still, we're speaking just about the blue box. I want to emphasize that. It's a rendering engine which has a model-agnostic paradigm inside, so you can basically encode time the way you want it. It's up to you, as long as we respect the interfaces themselves. And there, it has naturally further integration points because I'm just doing it on my free time. But dynamic anatomy, right? This is very important. So you already saw how this movement is evolving in time. But in principle, we want to be able to use any other kind of methods, for example, that allow us to elastically track how the organs are evolving in time. And well, this is basically one idea out of many. So I'm open to collaboration to build this into a usable surgical product. So I would like to say I see it as a plug-in rendering engine for the next generation of surgical vision systems. In my experience, many meditech groups have brilliant components, but basically sometimes on the newer technologies, they're just lacking the whole system all along, the whole pipeline. So the system is, as I said, not theoretical. The view may look a little bit synthetic if you look into it, but already the static model, so let's not go into the dynamic view, right? So already the static model is giving a representation that we already today don't have in the operating room, which is the output of a neural rendering system. Now we might have questions on, is this something possible? Can we just bring it into the operating room? Is this something we can be compliant about? Well, these questions have to be tackled one by one. But in principle, this is what we could propose. So on a disclosure, before I forget it, so this is an independent project, okay? I used only anonymized imagery and not patient data here involved. There are no commercial partners yet involved, though interest has been given in the right positions at the right time for me to start working on this. And I'm really open to collaborate. So here you can find some of my information if you are willing to speak about it. In my opinion, if we build the right modular pipeline now, we can enable a new class of tools for precision medicine and interoperative decision making. This is, for me, the leitmotif of this. Naturally, going deeper into how this works would take longer than we have today, but I'd love to connect if you're curious. If you're building the future of surgical vision, or know someone who is, let's connect as well. So, I would like to thank you very much for this opportunity. I hope that I'm happy to talk offline if this resonated with you and your vision. And then I would love to hear from you soon. Thank you very much.